Crown.
Is it the case that police officers in the United Kingdom are leaving the job because they can't afford to stay in the job? Well, some research work's been done on this. A quarter of officers, about that, 24%, and they're relatively young in the job, 1 to 5 years of service, say they might leave. 1 in 5 officers in this group are considering taking a second job. So do we pay our police officers enough? Is there enough perks? Are there enough benefits? Are there enough in-work satisfaction to get people to stay? Let's discuss this with Annette Petchey, who's the Chief Executive Officer at Metfriendly. They can talk finance, or Annette can. And Andy Rhodes is the Service Director at the National Police Wellbeing. Andy and Annette, welcome to our coverage. Thank you both very much indeed.
Good morning. Thank you,
There we are.
Martin.
Our Zoom is working perfectly. Annette, just explain this. The financial pressures of being in the police force is not one I'd come across before, but why is it that salaries aren't quite enough to meet living standards these days?
There are several factors that are coming out of the research that we've undertaken. It's not just about what officers and staff are paid, it's also about the ancillary things that go alongside that. So there are several things that have been removed over the last number of years around subsidised meals, travel. The pension, unlike the military pension, is a contributory pension, and there's a huge chunk of officers' pay that has to go into their pension. And you're absolutely right that a quarter are considering leaving, but an additional really worrying statistic is that nearly 2/3 are considering stopping paying into their pension because they can't afford to do so. So while a quarter of them are considering leaving now, that additional 62% that are thinking of stopping paying into their pension is a really good indication that we might have an additional problem a little further down the line with officers not staying in because they no longer have the hook of the pension, or indeed not thinking about their longer term financial stability.
Andy Rhodes, the pension used to be viewed as quite generous, didn't it? And one of the reasons to do the job?
Yeah, I mean, I joined the police in 1991, and in those days, everybody stayed. There was not even a discussion about it. You're in for the 30 years, and one of the reasons was that it was, and still is actually, a pretty good salary. It's a final salary pension scheme, right, which is very hard to come by in other sectors.
Rare as hen's teeth they are these days, Andy. Blimey.
The rare as hen's teeth. The issue is that because of cost of living pressure and because of other factors, as Annette said, people aren't talking about this sort of stuff in the workplace, but we are seeing lots more people, particularly young in service, saying, I don't see the long-term benefit of paying into a pension that I can't take with me when I go somewhere else. So one of the things with the pension is you pay into it. If you weren't going to stay, and who knows, maybe younger people these days are moving around a lot more between jobs, they want to be able to take their pension with them, and they're making a decision, it seems, in larger numbers, not to pay in.
The term family support is mentioned, it's cited in your report, Annette. What do you mean by the phrase family support, and why is that a factor in this?
The policing role isn't just about being on the job for the individual. So my father was a police officer. Incidentally, he actually left the police in his 30s and regretted it for the rest of his life. People talk about policing as being a vocation, but it's a vocation that the whole family has to buy into, because the families have to pick up the stuff that officers are not able to do because they're on shift, perhaps until 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. The families have to pick up running the kids to and from schools and things like that. But we're also seeing that people are a lot less good than they used to be. We no longer get taught in school about how to budget, how to manage our finances, and 64% of the respondents to the survey expressed financial concerns and said that they have concerns about their finances, and 60% want financial education and support and just guidance from their employers on how to budget, how to manage their money, how to make the most of the facilities and the schemes that are out there to support police officers and others.
And Andy, it's not an easy job. We appreciate that. I mean, that you have to have either an innate sense of resilience or be helped to be trained to develop resilience in everything, you know, in how you carry out your job, how you separate that from your private life, how you keep your finances on track. Are we failing recruits in some way? Are we not finding the right kind of recruits in some way?
Well, we're doing a lot more than we used to do with new recruits particularly, and culturally it's changed massively since, over the sort of last 10 or 15 years. But along with that, so is expectations. And I think they're realistic expectations. Annette talks about family impact. We've only just started to look at what we're doing around recognising family support as part of the police covenant work which we're doing. And we've never done anything around that before. And there is a massive impact. If you look at the type of work that police and other emergency service workers do, the exposure to trauma, the night shifts, the always on, the getting kept on at short notice, you know, you're a detective on a murder squad, you're staying there till the job's done. The other people in your house have to fit in around you, and there is an impact on them emotionally and also financially. So this is a very complex area where I think we've got to step up. Are you with me? Because I think in my expectation is that we've been quite complacent that everyone's just going to stay for 30 years. They are not, unless you do more than you've been currently doing to support them. And I think that's where we're trying our best to do that. And the research that Annette's team's done shines a light on something that nobody wants to talk about in the workplace, really, if they're honest. And that's money. And money is a massive factor for everybody. Whether we want to acknowledge that or not, we've got to do more.
Andy Rhodes is the Service Director at National Police Wellbeing. Annette Petchey is the CEO of a company called Metfriendly. Thank you both very much indeed.